When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten and the damned? He said, will you defeat them, your demons and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer to join the Black Parade.
Welcome back to the Cork Football Podcast. Another disappointing day out for us on Saturday. Not totally unexpected, but anyone that's been following Cork football over the years would be kind of mentally prepared for a day like that. But it's amazing the way the brain can play tricks. And earlier in the week there was such optimism, and it was a relatively good draw. I thought for us that we were in there with a good chance of beating Mayo. They were young and inexperienced. I thought we'd have enough for them, but as the week went on, I was listening to a few previews and a bit of analysis, and a lot of the previews were saying that even though they were predicting a Cork win, they were saying that if Mayo could shut down Stephen Sherlock, that they were halfway to beating Cork. And I felt that was very feasible to shut him down, because and we saw what happened in Killarney, and even throughout the championship, even though he definitely had improved, as in he was getting shots off faster, but that's what he was having to do. He was having to get his shots off much quicker in order to beat the man that was marking him. And there was a few pundits then that I wouldn't rate, and they were backing Cork, and that was a kind of a warning sign in for me as well. And I'm not blaming Stephen Sherlock in any way. I thought he actually played well. He got 7 points, 3 very good long-range frees, and he got 2 points from play. He was just very tightly marked, couldn't get free. I suppose it's not his fault that too much of our attacking focus is based around him and on him getting 2-point shots off. And look, it's not enough at the end at the business end of the championship. Bad news before the game that Fahy was out. He was a huge loss yesterday, because we really struggled on the left hand side. Now, Rory Maguire, I thought he did well enough, did okay, and I thought he was going well before he was taken off. He had just scored a very good point, and I thought there was plenty gas in him still. But I thought Fahy was really missed down that left flank, because he's a constant attacking threat, and he works very well with Sherlock. They interplay well together, and they have a good understanding. And I think we kind of underestimate the loss that he was yesterday. We lost the toss, and we were playing the first half into the scoring goals. That was the Devon end, and even though the flags behind Hill 16 were blowing, it looked like the wind was blowing towards the hill. I'd say the advantage definitely seemed to be going down to the Devon end. So we realistically needed 4-point lead, and at half time, and we didn't get that. We had plenty chances, but look, it was just a combination of poor execution and poor decisions. and we found ourselves level at half time. And, I wasn't overly worried at half time, but look, I'll come back to that. I wasn't gone in the matchups. I spoke to a man before the game, and he'd know his football, and we were just chatting about the matchups. And I did say that I was worried about Tommy Welch being on Loftus, even though Loftus didn't start. I didn't think that was the spot for him, because Loftus is one of these kind of enigmatic players. He's all over the field. He can play centre back, centre forward, midfield, full forward, and he disappears out of the game for long spells, but he's still involved. And I was afraid that Tommy Welch would be anonymous with him. And that guy that came in, Loftus didn't start, but just Towie came in. And, I did think Tommy Welch was a bit anonymous yesterday. I would wanted to see Tommy Welch and Daniel O'Mahony picking up Donoghue and McDonald. And obviously they'd have to interchange when one came in and one came out. But I wanted them two boys on them, especially Daniel O'Mahony on Donoghue when he was in near the goals. So he'd have the strength for him and the aggression. And I thought Tommy Welch would have given McDonald enough of it, both in the physical stakes, and I think that these players, the Donoghues and the McDonalds, they actually they'll bring you into the game, and I think the game kind of passed Tommy Welch by a small bit, whereas I thought if he was picking up say one of their danger men, I think he'd have been more prominent. We definitely have changed our approach. Probably didn't suit us to do it on the day, but in reality we'd have been better off if we killed the game and did something like we did over in Donegal, turned it into a complete snooze fest, and just kind of squeezed the life out of Mayo. But I suppose we knew that we had to bring variation in our play. I suppose with an eye to the rest of the championship, I assume our guys, like every other team, well, definitely most other teams that were left in that 8, would have been thinking, our guys especially would have been thinking, if we beat Mayo, got a lucky enough draw, we weren't going to be meeting Kerry in a semi-final. I felt that we thought that we could sneak into a final this year, and anything could happen then. And I think the fact that we knew that we couldn't continue with the way we'd been playing, that wasn't going to work in a semi-final or a final, so we had to kind of road test something. And we did bring variation to our game yesterday that we hadn't been doing all the year. And this was very frustrating, because we spent the whole league and the championship up until now not doing these three things. We weren't shooting when we were in range, except for a few kind of select players: Sherlock, Mark Cronin, Dara Sheedy, maybe Chris Og as well, and Colin O'Callaghan. All other players seemed to be kind of hesitant when they were in range, and just wanted to find another shooter. Another thing we weren't doing all the league and in the championship up till now was we weren't kicking any ball in transition, and we weren't kicking ball directly into our inside men. Right, when I say we never did it, we were doing it very, very seldom, and it wasn't a part of our game. And another thing we hadn't been doing up until now was we weren't using any incisive hand passing, say inside the small D, and during our forward into play, to what I call incisive hand passing now would be borderline risky passing, just to create openings for goal chances. We weren't doing that. We never did any risky passing. If a man was in a position, he would just recycle and wait, and we got it to a shooter. But Saturday, we decided that we were going to do all three, and we expected to be at the required level, despite not doing it all the year. And we found out that we didn't have the required level. The transition kicking and the direct kicking inside was fine. In fairness, no, that was that you couldn't fault that. we didn't kick any ball away wildly. But you had shooting on sight. What we found out yesterday, Paul Welsh, who had been shooting very seldom all year, we found out yesterday that he can shoot, and took his scores well, confidently, had a good sidestep. But he'd been turning down chances all the year. Same with Ian Maguire. Ian Maguire got a chance straight in front of goals. And the thing about it, if you look at that point he got, he had nothing else in his head when he got the ball, only shooting. All during the year, Maguire would get the ball and he'd have to think first about, I can't shoot, I have to find someone, and then he might shoot, when he'd find himself with no one else around him. But, we had Sean McDonnell, Brian O'Driscoll, Tommy Welsh, Rory Maguire. They all had poor misses, and then we're kind of surprised in that our shooting percentage was so low. These guys, you need to be shooting when you're in range. You know your own range, and if you're doing that all through the season, then your percentages, you find out fairly fast what your actual percentage is, and then it's a matter of making the decisions whether you're up to it or not. We tried to slip passes, incisive passes to runners in on goal. It was the right thing to do. Obviously, it's the right. All the good teams are doing it, but our execution was poor. I think we did 3 times. We tried to, give kind of borderline risky hand passes close to goal. None of them came off. And how would they, when we hadn't been doing it in the heat of battle all year? As I said, always in these scenarios, we have been recycling and with no risk. And, our system, it just ran out of road yesterday. So we knew it had to change, and we couldn't execute at the required level. And when you look back on it, we have no reason to be surprised. And just another thing there as well, like the media all the week in the build-up, it was all about Stephen Sherlock, 2-pointers, and he's such a 2-point threat, and he is 100%. But Mayo actually had 5 2-point shooters yesterday. You had McDonnell, Byrne, Donoghue, Carney, and Cohen kick for a 2-pointer. Missed very narrowly, but we didn't have that range of 2-point shooters, and our master plan then is having 1 2-point shooter. The opposition can close him down, where they had a variety of threats from that range. But we're conditioned into not doing that. There was actually one stage there, Colin Buchanan got a ball in the first half. He was in plenty of space. I thought that he would just check himself and go for the 2-pointer, but he carried it forward into further in towards goal and kicked it wide. But look, I'm not faulting him for that, but it's just that, it wasn't his default position to say, I'm outside the 2-point arc here. This is a 2-point shot. But the Mayo guys were doing that. No, a lot of the facets of our game were very good. I thought we fought really hard, especially for dirty ball on the ground. And I think, everyone was saying beforehand that we were physically stronger and they were younger, and that really showed when the ball went to ground. We won nearly all of those dirty balls, and it was just a pity we couldn't capitalise on that. We did well on breaking ball, which also would indicate we had a strength advantage and just a physicality advantage. Not totally, but it is a factor in breaking ball. And we did well on our kickouts and their kickouts. The only thing is our transition. Some of the time when we didn't kick, it was very slow. It's. I think it's this thing of trying to get. We're transitioning slow so we can load up the front line like we did in Donegal, getting bodies inside. But in fairness to Mayo, they realised that Donegal didn't push out on us hard enough, and they pushed out yesterday. And again, we weren't giving the pop ball into the inside men then when Mayo were pushing out. we kicked long from in transition into the inside line, but we weren't doing it from the scenarios when we were building up outside, trying to manufacture a shot outside. And we had guys standing inside, but they were only like, they were only token in there. And look, it Mayo copped that, and they look very comfortable. No, we look very uncomfortable at the back, because Mayo were doing what we weren't. They were when they had ball outside, they were kicking ball over our kind of, they were kicking it over our 45 and into their guys inside, and they were getting a lot of joy out of that. We were very shaky, I thought, at the start. And another thing Mayo were doing, they were continually looking for to take on the likes of Sherlock, Dara Sheedy, Sean Meehan. They had guys identified that they could take on, and once they got a man over, they were really exposing our full back line. Very lucky we didn't give away a penalty. I thought it was a penalty. We were just behind it, and on television after, I thought Shanley's legs definitely caught him. But we got a grips with things middle of the first half, and we found ourselves in a situation we were leading 7-4, and then we had a spell. I'd say just coming up to half time, maybe after 25 minutes, we had a spell. We lost a couple of crucial moments, and I think the first one was Mayo had a very bad kick out. Their player didn't hold the ball, and Brian O'Driscoll broke to Brian O'Driscoll. Very surprised with him that he didn't straight away, like in that situation, you say goal, and Chris Og was running, he was free. For some reason, Brian O'Driscoll didn't. I don't even think he looked to see him, because he went for the sharp pass to Dara Sheedy, who got bottled up. Mayo come down the field. McDonald gets a 2-pointer, crucial 5-point turnaround. Then we lost a long kick out over to the sideline. We had the two Maguires, Colin O'Callaghan over there. It was a 3-on-2, and we lost that inexcusably, really, to lose when you're on a 3-on-2 over there, and with two big men. And Ryan O'Donoghue gets a point out of that play, and it's 7 points each. Just in that was in the blink of an eye. Colin O'Callaghan, look, I'm not criticising the man, but he just was off form all day, and it could, it really did affect us. Even though he I'm just saying, by his standards, he played well. A lot of guys would be delighted with that display, but I thought just in around the kickouts, I thought he was off form. He was good when he was running with the ball, and very good on the dirty ball on the ground and around the moments, but got a very good point as well, but he just wasn't himself. And we needed Colin O'Callaghan, Brian O'Driscoll, Tommy Welch. We needed them boys to go very well, and they didn't. No, in fairness to Ian Maguire, I thought he had a good game, did well. He'd be pleased enough with his performance. He worked tirelessly, got a good point. He got a great block on Ryan O'Donoghue there at one stage when Donoghue went through. And, in fairness to him, he did well and played the full game. He was out on his feet towards the end, all right, but it was, I think he can be happy with his year, or his day yesterday, and the year overall. But the other thing is that I think, and has been an issue all season, is that there is no synthesis between Ian Maguire and Colin O'Callaghan on kickouts. And it's surprising because they're a long-term partnership in at midfield. I don't know how many years they've played together now, but you never really see moments when their partnership shows that they have been working together a long time. You never see them, purposely palming down a ball to the other guy, like one guy moving off to the side and the other guy seeing him and just palming it off. The ball, they break ball, but it's never with a kind of acuteness. And another thing is there was a few instances there, and it happening all the year. Like if you're jumping as a midfielder, and you notice your own midfielder is kind of running behind you, and there is space behind you, you can just let the ball through, and just about preventing the man you're jumping with from getting a touch on the ball. Just let the ball through, and that happened twice yesterday over near us, and it's just I'm just surprised for two guys that have played so much together that they don't look in sync as much as they should be. So, and then we had the breach just before half time, and that was a killer. And look, I don't know, it was just a bit of confusion, but I did see, like, Chris Oak was roaring at Brian O'Driscoll that he could see what was happening, but he obviously didn't hear him, because if he heard him, he'd have checked his run. But it was just unfortunate, and in hindsight, it was a killer for us to go in level. I know at half time I wasn't despondent by any means. I thought that if we didn't concede a goal in the second half, that I thought that we'd see it out. And I was saying, just if we could have a little less chaos in the game. I thought it was a bit too frantic. We just needed to see it out. I was happy enough, but as it transpired, they didn't need goals. They got normally 2 pointers they got, and sure, like, realistically, they're as good as goals when there's only a point of a difference. And you know, I thought that we were okay at half time, and I was happy with the way we were playing. That we had, you know, we were road testing a bit of variation on our play, but I thought we just needed to slow it down a small bit. But anyway, that didn't happen. Start to the second half, then I thought that we looked leggy. We were over there in the Hogan, but over near the Hill 16 corner, and I thought we looked tired. Early on, Sean McDonald and Stephen Sherlock, they lost a ball over there, got turned over, and it was completely down to a lack of intensity, both of them. Neither of them really went hard for it, and I think Sean McDonald definitely looked tired, and that was an area of the field down that left side all day. I thought we really missed Luke Fahey. Sean McDonald and Colin O'Callaghan lost another kick out then shortly after that under the Hogan stand, and I just thought it was completely down to a lack of energy that we lost it. I think I was actually at that stage early into the second half. I think it was about maybe, you know, I was only on a couple of minutes. I said we have to make changes, and I actually thought, well, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I thought there was a case for making a change at half time. I didn't think Mark Cronin was going well. Dara Sheedy wasn't going well either, but Cronin hadn't played well in the last game, and I thought he was poor in the game today, and he didn't. I thought that there was a case that Sheedy could be moved into the inside line, and that Corbett would come on. It was never going to happen, but I thought that would have been the right call. And I think it would have made a big difference. We saw what Mayo did. Like they pulled your man Towie at half time, and Tommy Conroy came on, and he made an immediate impact. And I think it's been a big issue with us all season, is the way we use our substitutions. Very predictable. We seem to have a rota for substitution and the timing. We're not making changes to deal with what's happening on the field in front of us. It's kind of like just a list. This guy is coming on at this time, and it's look, that's the way they want to do it. But I think it cost us yesterday, and I thought the subs we did make, we definitely got one of the substitutions wrong, I think, and another one is we made all our substitutions 10 minutes too late. So it was Corbett. I don't know. Yeah, Corbett. Yeah, that's what I said. Corbett. I would have brought him on at half time. I think Sean McDonald looked tired. I would have whipped him after 5 minutes into the second half, after they losing them. He was involved in I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying a great time for him. I think he's going to be a great player for us. He just looked tired, and I thought Dean should have came in at 40 minutes because we started to lose vital moments due to tiredness. There was one stage then as well, and it was. There was one instant now yesterday. If you look at it, it kind of sums up our situation up front. Colin O'Callaghan was coming up the field, found Mark Cronin with a very good ball. Mark Cronin runs into it, and he spots that Sherlock has just got the jump on McHugh, his marker, and Sherlock is bolting towards goal, but in the space of, I'd say, 4 or 5 steps, when Sherlock would have been in the position to receive the pass from Mark Cronin, McHugh had made up the ground, and Cronin couldn't make the pass. It was just Sherlock didn't have the legs to it was the right run, but he just didn't have the legs. Cronin didn't make the pass, got bottled up, and a turnover, and it just sums up the situation. Normally there, Cronin, like, he should have been, if Sherlock wasn't making the run, he would have kicked that ball. It would have been a lovely score if he had kicked that and got it. Colin O'Callaghan, it gets turned over very easily, and look, it was a good tackle by the guy, the guy that was that got the turnover, but it was kind of, I don't know why. I'm not blaming Rory Dean, but Rory Dean played well actually when he came on. Rory Dean, when Callaghan got the ball, Rory Dean ran across him and ran out towards the sideline, and I don't know why he did it. Like, he needed to run straight and draw the central men in towards him, and let Callaghan keep coming. Like, Dean ran towards the sideline. The Mayo boys had no interest in him. They were saying, "Head away out there. You're doing nothing out there." You know, there's all these top level teams now. They know who to mark and who not to mark. They let Dean go out there, and Callaghan kind of hesitated, and he had the ball whipped off him, and that was an awful turnover, and it came out of and the killer was that had Dean kept going in front of Callaghan, Dara Sheedy was making a great run through the middle, and it would have, there was a goal on there, and it was an awful pity. We had another turnover then over inside in that corner again, the Hill Hogan corner aspect of our play all the year. When we get into trouble, like, I think what you should be doing there, once you have a lucky escape from a turnover, you get the ball out of the danger area as fast as you can, and you reset. But we've this tendency of just barely get out of trouble and run back into it again, and we got turned over. I think it was Brendan Driscoll. Yeah, he started to put down the head and started burying, and we got turned over. But even though we're not playing well, and there's it's still only a point in it, 15 points to 14, and I think Rory Dean had a very harsh shoulder call against him. I thought it was a fair shoulder. He caught your man by surprise. Like, your man was turning, but I think Dean caught him. And by the way the ref was reffing the game, I thought it was a very harsh call. And then from that, and in the space of 3 minutes, basically, I think that was on 56 minutes, we're down 5 points. And at that stage, we needed to be bringing in Brady and Hurley straight away. Like, the game was slipping for us at that stage. And I think they bring in Hurley maybe in 60 minutes, and we needed a way before that. And for some reason, we took off Rory Maguire. I didn't think that he should have been taken off. I thought we needed to go forward. I thought Brady should have come on for Sean Meehan. I thought Meehan was struggling. I think Brady and Rory Maguire would have brought on a way more go forward if they had been left on. So look again. The subs, we weren't reacting to what was going on the field. The subs with our substitutions, and that was very disappointing. But look, that's what's been going on all year, and we allowed Mayo to get their tails up, and the longer the game went on, the more confident they get. You could see it happening, and the referee, watching the game up there, I thought he actually had a good game, but yes, he was letting a lot go. I didn't have any complaints about him, but watching it back, I think the reffing style cost us. He was letting a lot go, and the problem was that we weren't on the edge enough to take advantage of it. Mayo were. Mayo, like, I suppose we have this kind of thing that Mayo are these, sure God love us, they're grand lads and all that, but Mayo are a saucy bunch. Like, they've learnt a lot over the last 10 years, with what they've done, and they're fairly saucy, and there was a lot of instances there that I thought that we didn't react to them enough, and I thought the ref left it go. Sherlock was taken out in the first half there, and it would have been a 2-point free just on the edge of the arc, taken out after releasing the ball. Any other referee would have given a free there. Cohen could have walked for the tackle on Chris Ogue. If you see what happened in the Loud game there today, the Loud guy got sent off. Exactly the same thing. Yes, yesterday, today, and the Loud fella, he made contact with the head with the shoulder, but it didn't matter. The Cohen made contact with Chris Ogue's head just because he was trying to prevent a score. It shouldn't matter what part of the field it is. He was dangerous. If he caught Chris Ogue with his knee, which he probably did, I can't see the difference. I couldn't. It was a long ways away from us. But looking at it on television, I thought it was. He got booked, but I thought it was a very, very, very borderline. And you look at Ryan O'Donoghue, then he took Sheedy out of it deliberately off the ball, straight in front of the referee. At the time, we didn't know, but looking at it on television, like, he gave Sheedy a good dunt into the back. You see Sheedy's neck, head kind of jolting backwards, and that was straight in front of the ref. No, into the letter of the law, that's a black card, and it's a free brought forward. You can't interfere with a player off the ball like that. Take out a player off the ball like that. Chris Ogue, his arm was pulled back 2 or 3 times that time in the second half when he hand passed the ball wide. I thought the Rory Dean shoulder call was very harsh, and I thought Meehan's free against him in the first half for overcarrying, I thought he was fouled before that. Very, very, when you look back at it, I thought we got a lot of poor decisions against us, and basically it was an inconsistency in the way he was applying rather than anything else. No, fair enough. He did miss a penalty that they should have got. So, but that didn't balance it out. I thought that was very early in the game as well. It wasn't going to make an awful lot of difference. It was so early in the game. But I thought those decisions were poor. And it's a kind of a thing that's coming to refereeing now. And when you hear it that, this ref is lets things go, other refs don't. I don't think that should be the case. The rules are there, and they should be applied consistently across the referees. I don't think that you should be saying that Hurson is lets things go, or this fella lets things go. I think it's a poor look for the GA. So look, the game kind of petered out in us then, and there was only one winner coming down the track. Brian O'Driscoll had a goal chance. I actually don't think he would. No, I don't know whether he did go for goal or not, but it got a deflection. Looking at it on television, had it not got the deflection, it would have gone over the bar. So, but should he have hand passed it over the bar? It's easy to be wise now. Look, if it went in, we'd be saying he was a mighty man, but it didn't. So it kind of petered away from us, and it was very disappointing. So it's back to the drawing board, as they say. Yes, we have made progress this year. We're in Division 1, but we've made progress. But the question I'd ask is, we've made progress in what direction? We're definitely after putting miles on the clock, and we've covered ground, but I'm just wondering what direction we have covered the ground in, because I don't think the game is travelling in the direction that we're moving. It kind of, it reminded me of that scene there from Dumb and Dumber there, whenever it was, and the two boys, and there's a fork in the road, and they take the wrong fork, and they're all night driving, and they think they're heading for the Rocky Mountains, but in the morning they realise that they've gone 500 miles in the wrong direction. And I think we're a bit like that. I think the game is quickly going to another level in tactics, kick-outs, how you transition the ball, how you use the kick pass, in the psychology around the whole game. And I think that we are not up to speed on in them aspects. I think that the train has left the station on that, and I don't know if we're on it. I think we're playing a type of a pre-rule change game. Yes, it has got us promotion, but it has serious limitations, and we do realise that, and that's why we tried the variations yesterday. But I think we fell between two stools. We're not good enough to play the expensive game, and the conservative game isn't. When I say we're not good enough, we are good enough to play it, but it's just it didn't work for us. We just haven't used it enough, and our conservative game isn't going to cut it. I suppose the way I look at it, we're kind of running alongside the train now at the moment, trying to grab onto the side of it. And the question you have to ask then is, have we the players to compete? Have our players the skills to compete the game the way it currently is? I think we do, but I think the key here is getting our players to believe that they have these skills. And the question you have to ask is, can the current management transition from effectively having a style based around not trusting the individual player's ability? There's more trust in the structure, and I think it's about getting the players to trust themselves more than the system. And we have it's the inverse at the moment. If you look at the way Mayo play yesterday, they have a lot of freedom in their play. It's not overly structured. They know what they're doing, but we're depending too much on structure. And more importantly, then, is, can we get the players to accept a kind of a new philosophy of that's a new philosophy like that, and from the same management, because that same management have been telling them the diametrically opposite thing with the last couple of years, that it's, that trust the system, don't trust your own ability, trust the system, whereas the game is going the other way, and the game is kind of gone, it's kind of gone a bit vibes based now as well, that you have to play what you see in front of you, and you can see the two teams that played with conservatism over the weekend is ourselves and Monaghan, and both of us came a cropper, and it was like looking at it out there, hard to know what would have happened if they hadn't gone down to 14 men, but they really threw caution to the wind and they went at it, and is anyone saying that we couldn't do that and we don't have players as good as Loud? I think we do. I think that, look, my big fear now next year is that there's a tricky balance to be played, to try and stay in Division 1 and blood new players. My fear is that we'll stay conservative to stay in Division 1 and we'll fall further behind the top teams. Another question is, can we persist with Stephen Sherlock being the focus of our attack? Because at the moment we seem to be basing an awful lot around him getting 2-pointers, and the rest of our attack is kind of it's suffering because of it, I think. If you look at Darren McCurry there from Tyrone and the impact he has off the bench against tired defenders, I think that's something that we need to look at with Sherlock. Look, I've said that before, and I don't know, is it the player himself who won't accept that, or I don't know. It's and one thing I wouldn't be doing is listening to the media. The media should have nothing got to do with our decisions. We do what's best for us. But I think if we do stick with keeping Stephen Sherlock the focus of our attack, if our ambition effectively is just to keep making the quarter final and hoping to get lucky to get into a semi-final, I think, yeah, stick with him, but that'll be our ceiling. But if we want to climb those steps there in the next couple of years, we have to look at where he brings most value. And look, I'm not criticising him whatsoever. I thought he played well yesterday. He got the most out of himself this year. He has brought an awful lot extra to his game as well. But next year in the league, I think we need to be seeing loads of Conor Corbett, David Buckley, Derek Cashman, Derek Clifford, Jacob O'Driscoll, and a few under-20s there as well. But I really just want to say a massive thanks to the players and the management and the backroom for all their efforts this year. And it's they're a credit, and they've given us great enjoyment. And what they do on our behalf, it is exceptional, the commitment they give, and I'd just like to thank all of them for that. Yes, Saturday was very disappointing, but look, I think there's a decent future there. We had a very good under-20 team this year, and our minors are in an All-Ireland final next weekend in Newbridge. So I think there is a good future there, and it's just getting the belief into those players just to trust their own ability and not, having the crutch of a system. And as I said, we've had some great moments and memories this year. The 2 games with Meath, Parky Ring, we'll never forget them. And the game above in Oma to win promotion. And as Humphrey Bogart said to Ingrid Bergman back many years ago, we'll always have belly buffet. And before I sign off, there's just 2 things I want to mention. A lot of people, they've complimented the intro that I have on these videos, and thanks for that. But I made a very important addition to the photographs and that montage on that intro. And, I was kind of a bit disappointed with myself that I omitted it in the first place, but I'm glad to be able to put it right. And the second thing is I lost, and my own club, Dunamore, and the parish, we lost a very good friend and a former teammate on Friday night, Dan Lucy. Dan moved from Castleisland to Cork many moons ago, and he played with us here through good times and bad. And he was a fine, stylish wing back, huge engine on him, stay running all day. And needless to say, he loved Kerry, but and he'd never rub it in fairness to him. And he really knew his football, like most of them. But and it's very sad to see such a young man pass away so young. And I just like to offer my sympathy to Margaret and the lads. So then, farewell until we meet at that great Munster final up above, somewhere down the road. And just for myself, I'm really glad I started the podcast. It was a good bit more work now than what I imagined. There's a nice bit goes into it just to get your ducks in a row and to record it and whatever. But I'm really glad I did it. And I'd just like to thank everyone for listening and for all the support and encouragement. And look, we had a good year. I was delighted to get the ball rolling on this because We have a hurling podcast now as well, and that's really excellent listening. And hopefully the hurlers now can get over the line, and the minors as well, as we kind of need it. We need some bit of a pick-me-up. And look, next year we'll see what that'll bring. Hopefully I'll do it again, and with the help of God, that will be all around. And thanks again to everyone for listening, and good night and God bless.